David Grafton. I'm the Vice President of Planning, Assessment, and Administration. And it involves three major areas. Let's take them in order: planning, assessment, administration. So planning has to do with strategic planning. Some of the work that Louise Johnson did before me in her role, I've taken over that in working with the president to put together strategic plan for the seminary and take his ideas and his visions and put them in forms that can be shared with constituencies and then monitored and tracked. And a lot of that has to do with new initiatives like the distributed learning program that's being planned as one initiative of the seminary, and others that the president has in mind. The second area of assessment has to do with the regulations, the state, federal regulations, and accrediting standards that we are under and have aligned ourselves with. Those increase every year. We have more federal regulations, we have more state regulations, and the accrediting bodies want to make sure that institutions are abiding by those and are held accountable. And this is, since my work with the previous self-study and the decennial accreditation review we had in 2012, it became increasingly clear that regardless of the size of an institution of higher learning, regardless of whether it was private or state, that if you were receiving federal funding in any form, that or state funding, that regulations were mandatory, and you had to make sure you aligned with that. So every institution of higher learning needs to have somebody in place now that is aware of those regulations and standards, and that's where we are these days. And the third area is administration, and that is to help the president run the seminary primarily with staffing issues. So in my former role as Director of Graduate Studies, I was dealing specifically with graduate students or postgraduate students in the advanced level programs, and now I'm dealing primarily with staffing issues, staff committees, staff responsibilities, and the operation of the seminary. I hear all the time from leaders, pastors, rostered leaders, lay leaders in the church that we have to think outside the box. We have to do things differently. Everybody says that, but when push comes to shove, it becomes really hard to change patterns. It becomes really hard to change institutions. So when we're trying, and students, especially younger students, they're ready to get out and try something new. That means we have to give them a bit of freedom to do that. And for those of us who are shaping and forming students who are going right out into some kind of ministry, that's really, it's crucial to have some freedom to be able to do that. Here's a great example. When I came even 7 to 8 years ago, the language was always focused on parish ministry, that we were sending out people to do parish ministry, word and sacrament ministry. Well, word and sacrament ministry now takes a wide variety of shapes. And people are doing word and sacrament ministry in very, very interesting places. So our language has to change, and our expectations have to change about what we're doing with students, what they need. We don't know what they need. We're sending them out into areas that we have no idea what it's going to be like. So trying to develop some relationships with the church at large, and we're not only dealing with ELCA constituency, we're dealing with at least 29 other denominational constituencies about doing ministry in the church. We need a relationship of trust that we all have the best interest of the church and the gospel in mind here, and we need to be accountable to one another, but we also need to use Luther's explanation to the 8th commandment and think well of each other and take the best intentions in mind of one another. I mean, that we are intending to do something good for the church. That's our intention. The other really important thing that I find doesn't always get articulated well, and that is based on our role as an institution of higher learning. We have particular standards that we need to meet to provide accredited degrees for students, master's degrees, Doctor of Ministry degrees, PhDs. And so as the church continues to think about new ideas for how students and rostered leaders should look, what they should look like and what they should have and what kind of training they should go through, as long as at least the ELCA and other denominations are going to require that their ministers, their rostered leaders, are accredited or that have credentials, master's degrees, then that means that we have other taskmasters to answer to do that. It's not like we're just putting together a workshop or that we're doing a retreat. All those are well and good and necessary, but they may not fit particular degree program standards. So we always have to keep that in mind. That's a particular bind that the seminaries have, because we're not only producing or forming and shaping leaders of the church, but we're providing degrees. And as long as we're going to provide degrees, then we have kind of those two spheres of influence, both higher education and then church formation and faith formation. And they have to fit together, but there are parameters around that. I have to say, I mean, there is something different about this generation coming through. The millennials. Not all our new students are millennials, but there is something about the millennial generation that is really, it's just really exciting. And they have some really interesting and unique insights, commitments, ideas that I think are just perfect for the church. I think the main reason two main reasons that I agreed to take this position. Number one, I've always had it in my heart that when you're asked to do something, that you take it seriously. That if somebody asks you something, or it's that external call. If something comes from the outside, you have to take it seriously. So that's the first thing. When the president asked, would you be willing to do this job? The second is, I finally came to realize that given the changing dynamics of the seminary and where we are, if I felt I could help in creating a new culture to support the work of the seminary, the teaching of the seminary, if I could help in developing a new atmosphere, that this would be one opportunity. Whether I'm successful in that or not, I don't know. But as the director of graduate studies, I had access to the students and I had access to particular programs. And now my responsibilities are with staff and with the organization and administration of the seminary. And if I can help in that, that's why I'm here.